Welcome, everybody, for another session of Views from the Field. And perhaps this week it might be more appropriately titled Sounds from the Field. I'd like to welcome our very special guest, Carson Marshall, who's with us. Welcome, Carson.
Thank you, Allan.
Yeah. And I'd like to welcome everybody on Zoom who's here, our teacher community that's viewing this live. So thank you all for being here with us. Well, let's see, Carson, where to begin? You're a classically trained violinist, which we'll unpack a little bit as we go, I'm sure. And on top of that, you're fascinated by exploring the quality of attention that a listener brings to the concert experience. And we're so looking forward to actually getting our concert experience with you today and experiencing your work and how this is all unfolding for you as you develop what I think is a really innovative approach to music and mindfulness. You're currently a violin fellow at the New World Symphony in Miami Beach, Florida, and founder and host of Clearing the Stage. In a way, I feel like I'm setting the stage here, and then we'll turn it over to you to clear it. And you have a lot of other varied, interesting passions, I'd say, and interests in life. Do you want to talk a little bit towards those beyond music and meditation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Western Massachusetts, kind of like the woods, and it's, I feel so fortunate that I had a yard growing up and with streams and hills and things to kind of run through. And any of the things I was interested in, my parents really encouraged me to kind of do all the way and almost turn into like really embracing that curiosity. So when I was very young, like when I could stand, my mom put a fishing rod in my hand, and that kind of bloomed into a passion for fly fishing. And I would say my first experience with kind of fishing or a hobby or activity kind of bringing me into this presence or being kind of a window into being was standing in a river near my hometown, having the water just passing by and completely unable to catch the fish that were inches from me, but just being there and kind of slowing down and living at the pace of the fish was really amazing. And I do quite a lot of rock climbing. What else? I was really into archery for a while. I've just started practicing bonsai. I find myself learning by killing trees, which, it's, I like plants, and it's fun. And all the while, music has kind of been this through line in my life, but I definitely have a lot of other things that I do besides meditation and music.
Okay, thank you. Oh, that's very varied interests, and I'm sure you dive into those with as much kind of discipline and dedication towards learning about those different aspects of fun and enjoyment and hobbies, and with as much passion as you've brought to your music and skill. I want to talk a little bit about that, and if you'll forgive me in your session to telling a couple of personal stories. I think they'll serve as a way of leading into our session today. So, not about me, but I do want to mention, actually ask, do you know who Allan Lomax is?
Sadly, I do not.
Yeah, Allan Lomax actually went around the U.S. and England in the 40s, 50s, and 60s and made recordings of folk musicians, and a lot of blues musicians, and I'm an old blues harp player, which you got a little sample of, and I'm not going to play, so no worries. No. So what's interesting to me is when I think about what this is, what these views of the field sessions are, they're almost like snapshots, as Allan Lomax recorded and preserved for the field of music and folk music and blues. These sessions are like snapshots that we don't know if they go on long enough, say from 2022 to 2040, we can hope. We'll preserve some views of the field, and yours is a really unique one. So I'm just thrilled that you're here today and we can capture this. The other personal story is I used to be a massage therapist in Hawaii for about 14 years. And when I started, I was working at a hotel called the Iolani Hotel that had a big field next to it. So the NFL decided to use that field for their Pro Bowl players to train. And they would come in and I would massage like 300-pound linemen and running backs, and it would always be like, what's wrong with this picture? I should be on the table and they should be massaging me. But there I was. And the wonderful opportunity it gave me, and this is leading into your session, and then we'll let you clear all this, is that I got to ask them, how did you get to this level of achievement in your field? Because I'm just totally fascinated by people who have any kind of level of achievement. I kind of think of myself more as a generalist, but it takes a lot of discipline, a lot of training, a lot of dedication. And what an opportunity to ask these football players who weren't just playing football in college, who didn't just get in the NFL, but were Heisman Trophy winners, at the top of their field, invited to the Pro Bowl. How did that happen for you? So this is what I'm most interested for you, Carson. How did this happen? This ability to have the discipline to, first of all, move into music the way that you have, and then to bring it to meditation, and now to create Clearing the Stage and all that you're doing with it.
It's a beautiful, big question.
A big lead into that question.
Big lead in. I love it. Yeah. How did I do it? Well, I mean, I've been a musician my whole life. I started playing violin before I was making conscious memories. So 3.5, I think, is when I started. And I don't remember not playing the violin. And my dad is a traveling folk musician, and my mom went to school for harp and voice and is come from a super musical family. And I grew up kind of sleeping underneath the stage. Like my dad was, playing, and I had a little sleeping bag and I would crawl under there, and, it felt really safe. And I grew up playing in a small town, went into Boston for lessons, was exposed to kind of just better and better teachers and better and better colleagues and more opportunities, and ended up going to school in Houston, Texas, at Rice University. And so I had a very kind of typical path, for someone that wants to do music in a classical, very narrow sense, classical. And it was about maybe, I think, 2017, where I kind of came to terms that, yes, I'd been kind of running along this path, and I use the word running very intentionally, and kind of felt that there was something missing. And all along, I had had these moments in the concert hall where, either in my hands or just sitting on stage, working with, I've been so fortunate to have, sit inches from some of the best musicians in the classical realm that have ever lived, and it's very difficult to describe, but I'll do my best. It's kind of like the person walks on stage and it's like the air somehow thickens. It's like there is a shift, and I hope that everyone here has experienced a moment like this where time slows down and there's almost like a thickness to experience or the space around you. And it's just with this person hasn't started playing yet. It's just the way they carry themselves, how they're showing up. And I just have kind of been taking those little moments and kind of just putting them, in my going like this, like as a quiver or something, and thinking about, those moments. And I was actually really frustrated and had a really hard time around 2017 in college, because what I was being trained to do didn't feel aligned with providing those types of air thickening experiences. A clumsy way of describing, but so these things kept feeling farther and farther apart. What I was being trained to do was to execute a certain style or a certain way of playing, and I found that execution, again, an intentional use of the word, that execution of the music was not serving this larger vision that felt more true to what I wanted to do and how I wanted to show up in the world. So there's these two areas of my life that are getting farther and farther apart as I study more and more. And I decided one summer, enough is enough. I don't want any part of this. This was between my undergrad and master's. And I decided to take the summer off from playing, which, taking a day off of playing up until that point was considered like, oh my goodness, how could you do so? To take 3 months was really something. And I took 3 months off and lived out of my car and drove to Colorado and was rock climbing for the whole summer. And I was camping up this ravine, and there was a climbing team that had camped a few campsites down from me. And there was a guy that was playing a guitar around a fire. And there were maybe 12, 13 teenagers sitting around. And I drove up and I was kind of bedding down, getting ready to sleep. And I was lying in my tent and I was just listening to this person play music. And I hadn't heard music in maybe 2.5 months at this point. Very intentionally not heard any music. And what struck me was less the actual music, but again, this quality of the space, the quality of the attention that the kids were giving this person. I mean, it was so quiet. It was like the trees were leaning in to hear what this person was singing. And I remember getting really emotional in my tent because I remembered, oh, that's what I do. I know how to do that. Like, that's what being a musician is creating this space that gives people permission to feel. And I had this, incredible experience, and then just put it in the quiver and went on, with my life for a couple of years. And I kind of arrived at this format of combining music and spoken word with meditation because I want to intentionally create those spaces that give people permission to feel. And for me, meditation has, again, been this wonderful door into presence and into being, and the same with music. And again, these two worlds that were so far apart, I realized through this project of clearing the stage, I can bring them together. And I mean, why not, right? It's like I've been practicing these two things, and it's like it makes sense in hindsight, but it was very, very hard to get here. Really, yeah. It was actually me falling from the top of a boulder and breaking both of my heels last October. And I happened to be very close to home and had this accident and couldn't walk, and had nothing better to do than to meditate. And it was actually during a meditation session, I was like, wait, I could totally do this. Like, what, no one's really doing it kind of in this way. Why not try? And I've just been plugging along, and I guess I haven't really answered your, maybe I've answered your question. I don't know, but how did I do it? I guess just like one step at a time, and each step is like a point of curiosity or kind of following when I light up. Like right now, like I'm really engaged. I'm super sleepy, tired. Like I've had a crazy week, but right now I'm here, and I'm so grateful to be here with you all and following these moments, almost like creating this constellation that has just kind of led me here. I think I feel myself coming to a pause.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Carson. Not only have you answered my question, you answered the intention underneath the question, which is the inspiration that inspires us. And I'd like to continue to be inspired with as long a pause as is needed as we make this transition. So I'll let you decide to provide us with an experience of your music and your meditation, and then we'll come back and we'll look at it again some more.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I guess I will start by maybe giving a little rundown of what these next few minutes are going to look like, since they are.
I'm sorry, I can't get out of my own way. The stage is yours to clear.
You were sitting on that one. Thank you. And so I'm going to lead a brief meditative practice that is hopefully going to provide you an opportunity to get in touch with your sense of ground and perhaps interact with your inner atmosphere. And then I'm going to play an improvisation on my violin right here. And for these sessions, I use the prompt of center, tension, and release. And I use that format because it's actually those state changes that to me hold a lot of value. Typically in mindfulness meditation and music, the music is very pacifying and kind of all very similar. And I really like to create this arc to give the listener an opportunity to really engage with what's there. So I'll play the music, and then I will allow a little bit of space to kind of steep or sink in to that experience. And then I will gently bring us back to the room. And then I think Allan and I would love to kind of inquire, maybe get some feedback from everyone about what came up for them, because that's like my favorite part. So yeah, I'm just going to take a little bit of a pause, a lot of information. Kind of just setting up in the usual way. Taking a moment to perhaps get a little bit more comfortable. Really taking this opportunity to slow down. And if it feels right for you, you can allow your eyes to close or your gaze to soften. And I invite you now to bring your attention to the experience of your breath. Nothing special, just noticing its rhythm, the gentle rise and fall of your chest, and inviting you now to draw your attention to the weight of your body, being supported by the chair or the ground beneath you. And if this is perhaps difficult to sense, you can maybe gently try pressing one foot into the ground and then the other. And releasing, enjoying this sensation of the earth. And as we explore here together, you can always return to this experience of the floor and your breath. And with that, I invite you to turn your attention inward and notice your internal world. This could be your energy level, residue from your day, your emotional state, or any physical sensations that are present for you. Again, not changing them, just gently noticing kind of where you are and what you are bringing to this practice at this moment. Kind of like taking an internal weather report. And in this internal weather report, perhaps there is a word or a sensation that is most present. Perhaps it is calling out to you stronger than the rest. And I'm just curious, where is this sensation located or concentrated in your body? I'd like to invite you to inquire into the quality of this sensation. Is it hot or cold? Heavy or light? And if it feels right for you, perhaps you could presence this area gently with your hand. Perhaps saying to this place, I'm here, or I've got you. And noticing with gentleness what comes up or changes. And inviting you to just go a little deeper into that sensation. And notice if there are any changes as you start to hear the music. And gently now, starting to connect with your body again. The sensations of the support of the chair or floor, beginning to gently wiggle the toes, perhaps finding some easy movement. Maybe a little stretch, whatever feels right. And in your own time, if it feels right for you, can gently blink the eyes open and I'd like to invite you to really take a moment to orient in the space where you are. Really looking around and perhaps noticing 3 blue things. Today is Sunday, February 20th. Whatever time it is where you are right now. And hopefully you were able to stay with what came up for you during this session. And I really want to thank Allan and Mark and Sing to the Mountain Studio for this chance to share this with you all.
I'm sitting with a few words, and then maybe we could get a few comments, and then we'll go into our large group and we'll hear some more. I'm sitting with a sense of having been on a journey that incorporated sweetness, suspension. I almost felt for a moment like I was rock climbing with you and hanging off a boulder in between sound. Sadness, some sadness. A sense of dance. In the meditative state, my toes started moving, which is really unusual for me during meditation. And I'm returning to a kind of sweet surrender. Surrender. So that was what I'd like to share, and I don't know if you want to comment on that or just go to others.
I loved hearing it. Thank you.
For creating. Anybody else in our Zoom group? Okay, Anitha. Thank you.
Carson, this was divine.
Thank you.
And I felt the thickness as you started. And then your music took me through a story of a place in Paris, like a fort, like a palace. And then a guy from there meets a woman with a nose ring. And after the second space you gave into the third part, they're in love, they get married, and it's a trip in the water. It's a beautiful, I see hearts everywhere. And then after the third pause, it's fast, like how life is. It's busy, there's no time to think, and both of them are enjoying it, and they're like busy, just life. And then from that emerges I think it was the last but before part, where this old man who has an instrument like the Pied Piper, and the whole town is behind him. The whole town just following him. And this old man, he's very happy doing this. And then it brought me to, well, just like how we are here listening to you in a trance state of transformation. And then finally I felt like, my heart and my my love for your music. And thank you.
Wonderful. I just love hearing the stories that come up, and I'm just so grateful that you shared, and so grateful you could be here today, and that I could be here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Anita. Okay, let's see. Let's go to Robbie and then Nan.
Hi, Carson. To tell you, it was a pretty sad journey for me, listening to the music. And I think it's because I'm reading a book on Eastern European migration. And all I kept thinking is, this would be such a great soundtrack if they were ever to make that into into a movie. But I could literally feel it in my stomach and in my gut. And it was like it helped me connect almost to the suffering that I had been reading about. And it was just really, there were times when I didn't think it was pleasant having that feeling, but then it was kind of that connection to some of what people who came before me must have felt. And it was really profound, I have to tell you. So there was only one little piece where I thought, there might be happiness. And then you faded into something else. And I thought, that's probably how life truly is, right? Is that we have those experiences and we share them, and I think they do get passed on from generation to generation. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for sharing, Robbie. I loved what you said.
Thank you, Robbie. Let's go to Nat.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
My sound is good. Yeah, thank you. When you invited us to go to someplace in the body, I found myself drawn to the solar plexus, kind of that power chakra, um, and the kind of grief that is held there, especially about the planet and all the different things that are, going on still. And yeah, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes. But the music helped me. It was kind of like a knot, and so it kind of started to unweave and unravel and move, and just being with it. The music was able to ride it like a river, like going down the river of the sadness and deep grief about what's happening, and there was kind of okay, wanting to like okay, where's the hope, where's the but it'll be there, but still moving along, just being with what is there now, but a lovely experience of letting go of the holding or the pushing away of those feelings. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to Valerie, and then we'll move to closing.
I find your music just, well, I think divine was used before, but exquisite might be another word. I've heard you play, Carson, both classically from music that is well known, and now this improvisation, which I think conjures up something different. For me, it was very clearly an opening and a closing and a deepening dive down, and then maybe a joyous moment, the rising of the morning. But the whole thing reminded me mostly of a wonderful poem and story about Sir Lawrence van der Post, the great author, counselor of presidents, the great spiritual leader who is credited, I think, by many for saving the Kalahari Bushmen from extinction. There's a wonderful story where one night he's out in the desert with his friends, the Bushmen, because he grew up near them. And when you're in remote places like that, the skies are very dramatic, very dark, with stars that really, really shine more brightly than perhaps in other places. Well, you would know from your times in, yes, rock climbing. But anyway, they asked Lawrence if he could hear the stars singing. And he said no, that he didn't hear them. And they became so saddened by this because they could hear stars singing. And so what I felt and what came up for me on a physical sense as well is this great sadness, this great joy and this sadness of what there is, and how, as we maybe listen more deeply, perhaps we can begin to hear a little more. So this whole beauty of what you do, this teaching of deep listening, I think is really blessed, and I am so happy you were able to be with us today.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Valerie.
Thank you, Valerie, and thank you, Valerie, for making this possible by introducing us to Carson. And I'm so happy I have a chance to give you my appreciation on the recording before we close the recording piece of today's session. Thank you again, Valerie. And thank you, Carson. Wonderful journey to be on with you today and to know that you're on and throughout the years and the decades where you might take this. Many blessings for that. Thank you for joining us today. Great appreciation.
Thank you for having me. And if anyone wants to connect with me, my Instagram is carsonmarshallmusic, or you can find my contact. And I really want to hear from you. I really want to hear, if you were here today, and you can hear, it's kind of taking two branches. One is a podcast, and I'm actually working on having Valerie lead a meditation on the show, and the other is me doing things like this. So you can find information about that at clearingthestage.com.
Thank you. I want to mention to everybody that next week we're going to be joined by somebody who's part of Dr. Ni-Cheng Liang's collective, Mindful Healthcare Collective. It's Dr. Jill Wenner, and she's a nationally renowned expert in physical wellness and also the creator of a conscious anti-racism curriculum. So it'll be interesting to hear from her next week. As always, I want to thank Mark Foreman and Sing to the Mountain Studio for his production of our sessions, and all of you for your support. And if anybody would like to continue to support these sessions, who's watching in the future, maybe in 2040, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have a link for that also down in the description. Okay, well, thank you all. Thank you, Carson. And take good care, everyone.
Click down below to join our Mindfulness Teacher Community Facebook group, where you're also invited to post and share. Also, subscribe to Sing to the Mountain Studio so you don't miss out on future recordings of live sessions.